The first snow of December fell silently outside, blanketing the streets in white while inside laughter echoed through the walls that had once been my home. I stood outside, cold, hungry, and humiliated, watching my family celebrate Christmas without me. They didn't just kick me out, they laughed as they did it. I clenched my fists, tasting the bitter sting of betrayal. Every smile, every cheer from inside felt like a knife twisting in my chest. But something sparked inside me, a dark, cunning idea that would make them regret ever thinking they could erase me. I walked away from the glowing windows, pretending to be broken, but inside a plan was forming. I knew their biggest secret, their golden deal. The one they bragged about quietly to anyone who would listen. And now it would become my weapon. The city lights blurred as I mapped every step, every weakness. I wasn't just going to come back, I was going to return in a way that would leave them gasping, helpless. Every laugh they shared tonight, every toast they made, was fueling me. And then, as the church bells rang midnight, I made my first move, a move so silent, so invisible that no one would see it coming. I paused outside their mansion, the cold wind cutting through my coat, and whispered to myself, "They think I'm nothing, soon they'll realize I am everything." And just as I stepped forward, the lights inside went out. The sudden darkness inside the house wasn't accidental. I knew that because my phone vibrated in my pocket at the exact same moment the lights went out. One message, no name, just 2 words, "It's done." I didn't smile. Smiling was for later. Inside that house, panic replaced champagne. I could almost hear it, the confused footsteps, the nervous laughter trying to hide fear. Their perfect Christmas was cracking, and they didn't even know why yet. I walked away slowly, letting the cold bite my skin, grounding me. 3 years ago, this same family had sat me at that same table and told me I was temporary. Not good enough for the legacy. Not sharp enough for business. Just blood, nothing more. Tonight, they made it official by throwing me out like a stranger. What they never understood was this: I listened when they talked. Their golden deal wasn't just valuable, it was fragile. Built on favors, hidden clauses, and one signature that couldn't afford daylight. I didn't steal anything. I didn't threaten anyone. I simply nudged the truth in the right direction. By morning, the first crack appeared. I was sitting in a quiet cafe when the news alert flashed across the screen above the counter. A familiar company logo, a familiar headline. Major investor pauses funding amid internal review. Paused, not cancelled, not yet. But hesitation was poison in their world. My phone rang. This time a name. My older brother. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then silence. I remembered how he looked at me earlier that night. Like I was an embarrassment wrapped in cheap fabric. Like my presence ruined the aesthetic of success they'd curated. By noon the calls multiplied. An aunt, a cousin. An unknown number I knew belonged to their lawyer. I ignored them all. I wasn't ready to be heard yet. Instead, I paid my coffee and walked into the rain. The second move was quieter. No headlines, no alerts, just conversations. Carefully placed doubts. Questions whispered at the right tables. People like my family didn't collapse from attacks, they collapsed from uncertainty. By day 3, the house was no longer loud. I drove past it once just to see. Curtains drawn. Cars untouched, the glow was gone. That house had always been a stage set anyway, empty without applause. That night I finally answered a call. My mother, her voice wasn't angry. That scared me more. "We need to talk," she said. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't stood in the snow while she closed the door. "I agree," I replied calmly. "But not there." We met in a hotel lobby downtown. Neutral ground. She looked smaller somehow. Her jewelry still shined, but it felt desperate now. "You've caused a lot of confusion," she said carefully. I leaned back. I was confused too. When my own family decided I wasn't family. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "They're saying the deal might fall apart," she finally admitted. "Might," I echoed. She studied my face then, really looked at me. For the first time in years, I didn't look away. "What do you want?" she asked. I almost laughed. Almost. "I want what I was always denied," I said. "Seat, a voice, and respect." Her eyes flickered, not with love but calculation. That was fine. I spoke that language fluently now. "I'll see what I can do," she said. I stood. "Do or don't. Either way, I'm done waiting." As I walked out, I felt lighter. Not because I was winning, but because I wasn't invisible anymore. The next week was chaos behind closed doors, emergency meetings, arguments, accusations. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. I knew exactly how they'd turn on each other. They always did when things went wrong. Then came the offer, carefully worded, an invitation to rejoin the family business. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an assumption that I'd crawl back gratefully. I didn't respond. Instead, I made my third move. This one wasn't about them. It was about me. I met with someone they underestimated. Someone they'd pushed aside years ago, just like me. Together, we finalized something that had been waiting for the right moment. By the time the announcement went public, it was too late for them to stop it. Their golden deal, it wasn't gone. It had changed hands. My phone exploded with messages as the news spread. Shock, rage, panic, and then, nothing. No more calls. No more emails. Just silence, the kind that screams. That evening, I stood across the street from their house again, same place, same cold air. But this time I wasn't outside looking in. The front door opened. My brother stepped out, phone in hand, face pale. He looked up and saw me. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he took a step toward me, and I realized this was the moment everything would change. He froze as he approached, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The man who had once mocked me, dismissed me, even kicked me out of Christmas dinner like I was nothing, now seemed small. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the way he unconsciously gripped his phone like a lifeline. I let him come closer. Every step he took, every heartbeat built the tension. I didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. Power was in silence. How he started. Then he stopped. Realization hit. He understood. He always knew I was smarter than they gave me credit for, but seeing it in action, that was a punch to the gut. I smiled faintly, calm and touchable. "Do you remember that Christmas?" I asked, voice soft but loaded with menace. "The one you threw me out of. You laughed as I left. You thought I was broken." His hands dropped. The phone fell. A metallic clatter echoed across the sidewalk. His face drained of color. He tried again. "No, don't speak," I interrupted. "Tonight you'll listen, and you'll understand why you should have never underestimated me." I stepped closer, letting him feel the cold weight of my presence. 3 years you thought I was gone. 3 years you built your empire on my absence." He opened his mouth, but no words came. Fear had stolen his voice. "Good. Let him choke on it. I didn't just survive," I continued. "I thrived. I took the pieces you ignored, the connections you dismissed, the knowledge you thought was meaningless, and I turned them into leverage. And now," I paused, letting the suspense stretch. "Now you see the first wave." His eyes darted to the glowing city behind me, not realizing the storm was already inside his own home. The golden deal, the one they had cherished, the one that defined them, was crumbling, slowly, quietly, invisibly, but the effects were unmistakable. "You think I'm here for revenge?" I asked softly, stepping even closer. "No, revenge is too small for me. I'm here for justice. The kind that comes without apologies, without mercy. The kind that makes you wish you'd never laughed at me that night." He swallowed hard. Sweat formed at his temples despite the chilly evening air. His pride, once unshakable, was now a fragile thing, trembling under the weight of my presence. "And tonight," I whispered, "you're going to witness the consequences." I turned, walking away slowly, letting the silence do its work. Every step echoed on the empty pavement. He followed instinctively, as if drawn by the gravity of his own guilt. Inside his house, chaos had already started. The boardroom meetings, which had seemed so controlled, were unraveling in my absence. Emails were unanswered. Investors questioned leadership. Allies whispered doubts that would explode into conflicts. And I watched it all from the sidelines, unseen, untouchable, but omnipresent. I wasn't just outside the house, I was everywhere they feared I could be. Every conversation that faltered, every misstep they made, was another victory. And yet, the final act hadn't even begun. I returned to my small apartment, stripped down the pretense of normalcy, and opened the encrypted files I had prepared months ago. Each document, each piece of evidence, each carefully saved interaction was a thread. Pull one wrong thread, and the entire web would collapse on them. I smiled. My family never realized that the one they thought was powerless had always been the one with the sharpest edge. I sent the first anonymous tip to a major news outlet. The email was simple. No names, no accusations, just facts, cold, undeniable facts. By morning, the ripple effect began. Headlines whispered scandal, stock prices faltered, employees whispered fear, and my brother. He paced like a caged animal, desperately searching for the source of the disruption, unable to grasp that it wasn't outside, it was inside him. My phone buzzed, another anonymous tip, another leak. Every move was calculated, precise. And psychological. I didn't touch the golden deal directly, I didn't need to. Their own mistakes, amplified by the subtle nudges I placed, were destroying them. That night, I watched from a rooftop across the street as the lights inside their mansion flickered on and off. Shadows of panic danced across the walls. The family sat together at dinner, but the laughter was hollow. Fear had replaced joy. A single candle flickered in the darkness. I knew it represented the fragile control they still clung to, and I smiled, because tomorrow, even that would be gone. I left a small note on my brother's car windshield. No words, just a symbol, a reminder that I was still watching, that I was everywhere, that nothing they did could hide them from me. By the following morning, the first calls came. Investors, lawyers, all panic. My brother tried to act calm, but it was too late. He could feel the walls closing in. Every plan he had, every scheme he thought was untouchable, was unraveling. And I sat back, sipping my coffee, calm, untouchable. Every move had been calculated, every risk anticipated. And yet the ultimate confrontation, the one that would define everything, had not happened yet. I leaned forward, whispering to the empty room. They wanted to erase me, now they will remember me forever. Outside, a black SUV slowed near my apartment. A shadowy figure stepped out. Someone from their inner circle, someone who knew more than I expected. The chase, the final act, the reveal, it was about to begin. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just revenge. It was transformation. And by the time they understood what had happened, it would be too late. The shadowy figure paused at the corner of my street, glancing up at my apartment window. I didn't flinch, I had expected them. In fact, I had planned for them. Every single person in my family's circle had a weakness. Some knew too much, some trusted blindly, and this one, well, they were about to become a pawn in my game. I stepped out, keeping my coat pulled tight, letting the night swallow my figure. Rain-slicked streets reflected neon lights in distorted patterns, like a fractured mirror of the chaos I had orchestrated. The figure stiffened when they saw me, unsure if I was friend or enemy. "You've been busy," they said cautiously, voice low, almost trembling. "And you?" I replied calm, "been careless." They shifted, trying to mask fear with authority, but I could see it in their eyes. They wanted to ask questions, but I held up a hand. Silence was more powerful than any interrogation. "I know everything you've done," I continued. "Every secret meeting, every whispered lie, every plan you thought I wouldn't notice. And now it's time you make a choice." The figure swallowed hard. "I don't understand." I smiled faintly, letting the rain soak my hair, letting my calmness intimidate them. "You understand perfectly. Help me, or watch everything you've worked for crumble, and know it's because of me." They hesitated, fear battling loyalty. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned and started walking, knowing they would follow. They had no choice. Inside the mansion, chaos had escalated. Every executive meeting that had seemed under control was now a battlefield. My brother paced like a storm, furious but blind to the true source of the disruption. Emails, memos, calls, they all came from invisible hands. Every step they took was a reaction to shadows, whispers, subtle nudges. The golden deal, the one they had prized above everything, was weakening. Investors who once cheered now hesitated. Partners who had nodded silently now questioned openly. And all of this was happening without me ever touching the deal directly. My weapon wasn't force, it was manipulation, intelligence, and timing. Back on the street, the shadowy figure whispered, "If we do this, they'll know it's me. They'll know everything." I turned, fixing them with a look that froze their spine. "They'll know nothing. The less they see, the more they crumble. That's the point. You just follow instructions, precisely. Any deviation and you're exposed too." They nodded, trembling, and we moved in silence through the slick streets, shadows blending with shadows. Every step was calculated, precise, a prelude to the next chaos I would unleash. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, the cracks were now visible to anyone with eyes. The family members argued openly for the first time in years. Alliances shifted like quicksand. Friends became enemies, brothers turned on cousins. Each argument, each whisper of doubt had been placed perfectly by me. And yet the pièce de resistance had not yet arrived. I had one more move, one final strike that would make them understand the full extent of my power. It wasn't just about the golden deal anymore. It was about identity, about pride, about proving, once and for all, that the person they cast out was unstoppable. I returned to my apartment, reviewing the final files. The emails, recordings, financial proof, they were all ready. One click, one leak, one reveal, and the world would witness the downfall. But I didn't act yet. Timing was everything. From the rooftop across the street, I watched the mansion lights flicker. Shadows of panic danced along the curtains. My brother was still in control, or at least he thought he was. I smiled. Let him believe that. Fear grows stronger when hope remains. The shadowy figure from earlier approached again, hesitant. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded. "Every step has been tested, every reaction predicted, nothing will stop it now." They swallowed hard, then followed my lead. Together, we were no longer invisible. We were unstoppable. Inside the mansion, my family gathered for what they thought was a private dinner. I had arranged it so the final revelation would hit them in the most personal, most humiliating way possible. Every misplaced trust, every forgotten obligation, every snide remark from years past was about to explode in their faces. And yet I paused. I wanted them to squirm. I wanted them to feel the anticipation, the dread building like a storm cloud above their heads. The moment of panic would be more powerful than any argument, any confrontation, any shout. Outside, I tapped a single key on my encrypted laptop, a soft click, a quiet signal, a trigger that would send shockwaves. But I didn't activate it yet. Not fully. Timing, as always, was everything. I could see my brother through the window now. He didn't notice me. He never noticed me, not in years. But soon he would. Soon. He would understand that every little smirk, every insult, every dismissal had been cataloged, remembered, and weaponized. The shadowy figure whispered again, barely audible. "They'll hate me, maybe even kill me if they find out." I turned, my expression cold but calm. "Good, let them fear you, let them tremble. Let them realize that the walls they built to keep us out are the same walls that will trap them." A dog barked in the distance. A car alarm blared. The city moved, oblivious to the storm I was orchestrating from a single rooftop. Inside the mansion, the family's laughter faltered. A single text appeared on my brother's phone. He froze. The glow from the screen reflected panic in his eyes. Every message, every email, every hint of disaster, carefully timed, was now converging. I whispered to myself, they think they control everything, but they don't even control the air they breathe anymore. The shadowy figure stepped closer. What happens next? I smiled faintly, a predator observing prey. Next we watched them crumble, and then I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the tension cut through the night like a knife. We make them remember who they erased. For hours I observed. The mansion, once a symbol of pride and power, now trembled under the weight of invisible chaos. Allies betrayed one another, secrets spilled in whispers that turned to accusations. And at the center, my brother, panicked, helpless, yet clinging desperately to the illusion of control. I didn't interfere. I let them destroy themselves. Let them realize that the foundations they trusted were nothing more than sand. But one final act remained, the ultimate reveal. One move that would not only humiliate, but also redefine everything they thought they knew about me. I leaned back, watching the rain streak down the glass of my apartment window. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Ready. I smiled a slow, dangerous smile. Everything was ready. Every detail meticulously placed. Every reaction predicted. And yet the climax, the final confrontation, had not yet occurred. Because even now, even tonight, they still didn't know I was not just coming for revenge. I was coming to own everything they thought was theirs. And when they realized it, it would be too late. The mansion was quiet now, but the calm was a lie. I could feel the tension vibrating through the walls like a low hum, a prelude to the storm about to break. My brother paced the study, phone clutched in his trembling hands. The family had no idea the golden deal they had laughed about, taken for granted, and built their pride on was no longer theirs. I arrived at the front door unannounced. The shadowy figure I had recruited earlier lingered at a discreet distance. Every step I took toward the mansion was deliberate, calculated, a predator's walk. The door opened before I even knocked. My brother's eyes widened, recognition, disbelief, and panic all flashing across his face in a single heartbeat. "You're how?" His voice was hoarse. I smiled, calm and cold. "I told you 3 years ago that you underestimated me," you laughed. "You threw me out, you thought I was nothing, but tonight you're about to remember me." I stepped inside. The air smelled of expensive wine and false confidence. My family gathered, thinking the worst of the day's disruptions were external, an investor here, a competitor there. They didn't see me as the cause, but I was the storm. "You'll all want to sit down," I said, voice carrying across the room. "It's going to be a long night," ice-widened whispers broke out. My mother, my cousins, even my father, long absent from the drama, stared frozen. I reached into my bag and pulled out the files. Emails, contracts, recordings. Every move they had ever made regarding the golden deal was documented. Not just documented, weaponized. "I gave you the chance to play fair," I said. "I gave you the illusion that things were out of my hands. But you refused, and now everything is mine." My brother laughed nervously. "You can't, this isn't legal." I leaned closer. "Legal? Oh, it's legal. But it's final. Every weak link you ignored, every person you thought was irrelevant, they've all turned. Investors frozen, partners backing out. The golden deal you prized is no longer under your control." Panic rippled across the room. My mother clutched a chair, as if it could hold the walls together. Cousins whispered frantically to one another, realizing the empire they trusted was crumbling. "You think this is revenge?" I continued, my voice low, slicing through the tension. "It's not. It's justice. You wanted to erase me from your lives. You wanted me gone. Tonight I didn't just return, I took what you valued most and proved you were foolish enough to leave it vulnerable." My brother stumbled back, pale. No, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "I understand every betrayal, every insult, every plan you thought I would never see, and I used it all. Smart. Invisible until now." I handed the shadowy figure a folder. "Show them everything." They did. Every document, every email chain, every secret meeting and shady agreement flashed on the screen I had set up in the living room. Faces went white. Hands trembled. Pride turned to ash. My mother's voice, "Can't, call me whatever you want," I said, voice steady. "But this ends tonight. The golden deal, the empire, the control you thought was untouchable, it's mine. And there's nothing you can do to take it back." My brother sank into a chair, defeated, realizing the full scale of his miscalculation. He had built his life on arrogance, assuming I would stay broken, invisible. But I had grown stronger, smarter, sharper, and he had no defense. I stepped closer to him, letting the weight of my presence press down. "You thought you were untouchable," I said softly. "But your own greed and neglect created the opportunity. And I am unstoppable." The room was silent. My family stared, terrified, powerless. They had no allies, no leverage, no escape. "And now," I continued, voice echoing with finality, "I give you one choice. Acknowledge what I've done or watch everything you've built fall completely apart." My brother's head drooped. Pride shattered. He had no words. My mother's hands shook, finally understanding that her attempts at control had failed spectacularly. Every snide remark, every act of dismissal, every time they laughed at me outside the Christmas dinner, it all came back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten, I simply stood there, calm and isn't always loud. Power is presence. Power is inevitability. By the end of the night, the golden deal was fully in my hands. Contracts signed by proxies. Funds redirected, partners convinced, everything aligned perfectly. My family could only watch, helpless. I turned to the shadowy figure, nodding. "It's done." They nodded back, silent, a mix of fear and awe on their face. I took one last look at my family. "Remember this night," I said softly. "Remember who you erased. Remember who you underestimated. And remember that this is only the beginning. Because anyone who thinks they can erase me will learn the same lesson." And with that, I walked out into the cold night, leaving the mansion behind. Silence, destruction, and defeat followed me like shadows. The snow had returned, blanketing the streets, but it felt like a cleansing now. Not the bitter cold of rejection, but the quiet victory of power reclaimed. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Victory tasted better in silence. because I knew one thing. I had taken back everything they thought they owned, and in doing so I had finally reclaimed myself. Outside, the city moved on oblivious. Inside, a family that had once called me worthless now understood exactly who I was and me. I had proven that the person you try to erase can become the storm that changes everything. Teach and